Hey guys, I have an unboxing and initial impressions video for you guys today, and this is it. It is actually a new fountain pen, and as you can see from the box, it's a Lamy. If I go to the label, you can see, hopefully, there we go. It's a Lamy 2000 in extra fine, and I got this maybe about around a week ago. If I go ahead and open it, it has the fold-over box with documentation, and here's the pen. Lamy's packaging is it's pretty decent. You know, this is kind of like a cardboard box. It's probably not the most durable box in the world. It's not made out of plastic or anything, but it's work. It works. It's functional to Lamy's design ideals and whatnot. This pamphlet also kind of shows you the line of Lamy pens that they have. I'm not going to really go through it. It also shows you how to use the various different pens they have in their line. And we'll just throw that to the side. And here is, warranty information. Apparently, Lamy's warranty policy it's really good. They warranty any manufacturer's defect and whatnot, and they'll generally fix things that aren't, they'll fix things for just return postage if it's a manufacturer defect. And yeah, here's the pen. It's really nice. It's a very futuristic design, I suppose you could say. I believe this pen was designed in the 1960s, and while they've made some design changes to it, overall the pen pretty much looks almost the same as it did like 50 years ago now. This pen MSRP is for $195. Most brick and mortar stores will sell it for around $160, and you can usually get it online between $130 and $160. I actually got a fantastic deal on this pen. And the main reason why is because it is not brand new. If you actually look, I don't know if you'll be able to see. Probably not. It's a little too bright. But this pen is actually inked up right now. I actually bought this off of my friend who likes how the pen writes, but doesn't really like the overall feel of the pen in his hands. And he also had one of his writer friends let him borrow the pen for around a month. But both of those guys, they write with fountain pens on a regular basis. They know how to maintain and take care of them and write with them properly. So I wasn't really concerned about buying this pen used. Generally with fountain pens, I'd be a little hesitant on buying fountain pens used because, if the previous owner or owners don't really know how to write with the pen, they may damage the nib or, other parts of the pen, and, getting a new nib on this pen won't be cheap. It's probably going to be like around $60 just for maybe the parts. It is a 14 karat gold nib. Plus you're going to have labor, which if you send it to Lamy, I don't think they'll charge you for the labor, but they'll definitely charge you for the parts. And with the return shipping, it'll add up to be like a $70 job. So in which case, if you got a okay price on it used, but you have to pay an additional $70 on top of it, you might as well just buy the pen brand new, and because it's going to be around the same, except you're getting a used pen. And like the box says, this is an extra fine nib, and it's 14 karat gold, plated with platinum, I believe. It makes sense for them to plate it to something of a silvery metal because, a gold nib, in my opinion, would not really look that proper with this sort of pen design. There is a stainless steel, grip section here, and then the rest of the body is what they call macrolon. I think it's basically like a fiberglass. I'm not 100% sure. It's a very durable plastic, though, that's for sure. The cap is made the same thing, and the cap also has a nice spring-loaded clip, which is pretty good. And there's actually, probably won't be able to make it out, but like right here, right next to my thumbnail, is an ink reservoir window for you to see how much ink is left inside the pen. This is a piston filler. I do have it inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukiyo ink, but just to kind of show you how it works, let me just get a nice piece of cloth here. There's a piston knob here, and when you turn it loose, there's actually a plunger inside the body of the pen, which will, as you turn this loose, the plunger will go downwards, and there we go. As I turn it, ink will probably start coming out. Oh, there we go. So there's a droplet of ink on the nib right now. Let me just dab that off. Basically, you would unscrew this until you feel resistance. You would dip the pen into your inkwell. You see there the breather hole that has to get submerged inside the ink in order for you to suck up any ink into the body of the pen, and then you would just twist the cap tight again, finger tight, and that's how you would fill this pen. It's pretty nice. In the past, my pens have been cartridge converter pens, except for one pen, which my old Parker 21 is a vacuum sac pen. But for the most part, I basically use converter pens. And this is nice because it's one less thing that you have to worry about. You don't have to go out and find a converter for your pen like I did with my Lamy Safaris. And you don't have to go out and get cartridges. At the same time, it's a little less convenient because you do have to travel with a bottle of ink. You can't carry around cartridges, which I know some people like because if they travel a lot, they don't want to deal with maybe having a large bottle of ink or even a glass bottle of ink that might break on them. So they'll carry cartridges. The good thing about piston-filled pens versus a converter is that while the motions are kind of the same in terms of filling the pen, converters don't hold nearly as much ink as piston pens will. I think this pen will probably hold, you could probably get upwards of like 2 milliliters of ink in one filling, versus a converter, usually you'll get less than 1 milliliter of ink. In terms of this pen, it writes very well. I did get it used, so I don't really know how the nib writes when it's 100% new. This wasn't sent to a nibmeister or anything to have it changed or modified in any way, so in my mind, maybe it'll start off a little bit scratchy because it is such a fine nib, and then through regular wear of using the pen, the nib section area will smooth out according to how the user writes with the pen. But I have a Rhodia pad here. It's a number 16 Rhodia pad. Rhodia is kind of my go-to standard paper. It's relatively fountain pen friendly. With your typical pen, you won't get feathering or bleed through. With certain inks and with pens that really are super wet, it may feather and bleed through a little bit, but not terrible. I haven't really had a case where there may be bleed through, but usually there won't be anything showing on the page below it. Now I'll just quickly write something. I'm writing around a tripod, so it's a little awkward. But let's see how this writes. For this pen, actually, I don't actually hold it at the nib section. My grips for my pens are generally a little higher, so I'm actually holding it right above where the stainless steel grip section is. And you can see there are actually two knobs on the ends here, which kind of lock the pen into the cap. You can hear it snap in place a little bit. Some people may find it annoying, especially if they grip the pen on the sides like this in that kind of tripod hold. For me, I actually grip like right above where those little steel knobs are, so it doesn't bother me in any way. I haven't used this pen for super lengthy writing yet though, but it's just I can barely feel the corner of this knob on the back with my index finger. So So yeah, I don't know if you can actually hear it. I don't know if the microphone will pick it up, but you can kind of hear the nib scratch a little bit on the paper. It's not like writing like on glass, it's not super smooth. Yeah, at the same time, this Rhodia paper isn't the smoothest paper you can get. Clairefontaine has a 90-gram paper, which should be a little smoother in terms of the surface on this. And if you were to use, even nicer paper, like let's say Clairefontaine Triomphe paper, that's supposed to be like almost like glass. And you'll get less scratchiness with the nib. But honestly, for an extra fine nib, which I suppose with like a Japanese standard, this would be more like a fine nib. Most people complain that actually Lamy nibs write slightly on the wider end of the spectrum when it comes to how they grade things. But for nib sizes, you can't really compare between different manufacturers. If you want to compare a fine from one, like let's say Pelican, and a fine for Lamy, they may be different. And generally, this is just like a frame of reference between the company's own pens. But overall, in terms of actual feel, I think it's smooth, especially for an extra fine nib. And you can see like the feed has no problems keeping up, especially since this is a fine nib pen. You're not really putting a lot of ink down onto the paper, so you can see there's no skipping at all. It's a nice, solid color line and everything. Yeah, put it up close. It may vary a little bit with the inks. The Pilot Iroshizuku line tends to be a little on the wet side. It's a very forgiving ink. It flows very well. There's nice shading, even on a fine nib. You probably won't be able to make it out on camera, but you can get decent shading with it. And overall, definitely for the money, I think it's worth it. And a lot of people say that the Lamy 2000 is one of those pens that is just a really solid pen for the money. Even if you were to pay the full MSRP of $200, you can't really go wrong. That's kind of like the $100 to $200 range is kind of the sweet spot for pens, where you're paying for a certain level of quality in the materials, but you're not paying for excess things like brand name. Like let's say you were to get like Montblancs or something. You're not paying for that, and you're not paying for like super expensive like inlays or lacquers and whatnot. I would definitely recommend getting this pen at the $160 level. For fountain pens, it's generally a good idea to go to a brick and mortar store if you can, because you do have the convenience of trying out the pen there and seeing whether you like how it feels in your hand. They may have tester pens for you to write with to try out. They're not necessarily going to let you ink up a brand new pen, but you can get a general feel of how the pen is at a store versus online, where you don't really have that option. But generally, the pen itself online will be $30 cheaper, and that's kind of the price you pay, I suppose, for dealing with an online retailer. So you can't get a feel for how the pen is. The price I paid for this, under $100. I'm not going to really put out the price there, but I got a really good deal because it was a really good friend of mine, so he gave me a great deal on it. He was actually the guy that kind of started me on fountain pens, I suppose you could say. No regrets buying this pen, and if I had to do it again, I would definitely pay to $130. I would pay to $160 as well. Maybe not the $200. You can kind of get some other pens at that $200 range. I've actually considering getting another one of these pens in a broader nib, maybe a medium or an actual broad nib. But I don't really have the funds for it right now, and I kind of want to expand my pen horizons first. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this quick initial impressions. Not really an initial impressions because I have been writing with this pen for a few days now. But in the future, my other pen videos will basically be initial impressions where I'm just going to do an unboxing when the day I get the pens, and you'll see me first, ink up the pens for the first time and just give it a go. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.